All right, hey everybody, this is the Ben Jaminet Show. This is an episode that I am super excited about. We have, well, what do they call you at the facility? Are you Swaggin' Shades? Are you Coach Hale? Are you Coach Alex? What is it?
They only call me Swaggin' Shades if they're trying to give me a hard time. Everybody calls me Hale. With my players, I've always responded to whatever they call me, whether it's Hale, Coach Hale, Alex, Swaggin' Shades. I don't really care. My players are kind of open and free to call me whatever they want because I want them to be open to talk to me about anything. I think kids in this generation, like, if you don't leave the door open all the time, they're not going to burst through it. So I have an open door policy for all my guys.
Yeah, love that. Well, everybody on the show gets kind of a background here, so I'll give you one, and then you let me know, is there anything I left out? Is it all encompassing? Anything you want to fill in, feel free to do so. So, Coach Alex Hale, better known as Swaggin' Shades, was a two-time state champion in the state of Nebraska, won Gatorade Player of the Year your junior year of high school. You committed to play Division I baseball at the University of Richmond and played catcher and pitched in relief, all while batting .292 for your career average. You were drafted by the Los Angeles Angels in 2007, whom you chose not to sign with, then again by the Boston Red Sox in 2008, who you eventually did. Played minor league ball for the Lowell Spinners, where ultimately you would finish your playing career. And then eventually opened Chips Performance, what you are best known for today, your own baseball training business, which has gained notoriety in large part due to your expansive social media following and your very entertaining skits.
I'm also 8th on the all-time strikeout list. That's pretty much it. I converted to pitching. Middle of my sophomore year, we had a bunch of injuries and stuff, and so I started pitching and ultimately ended up doing that, getting drafted and playing in the Cape as a pitcher. So I was learning how to pitch on the Cape, which was a whole experience. But it's why I'm so passionate with guys about pitch counts and taking care of their arms. I did a really good job taking care of my arm, and then I let myself. I'm not blaming my coaches in college. I was the one who was like, I can throw every fifth day. So instead of being like the Friday guy, I was the Friday guy, then the Wednesday guy, then the Sunday guy. Whatever I could to help the team. But in my junior year, as my draft year, that wasn't necessarily my responsibility, and so that's where a lot of the band stuff and take care of your arm stems from.
So obviously we mentioned a few accolades there in high school that are pretty impressive. Only the top 1% of the 1% achieve a lot of those. What was the recruiting process like, especially in a baseball state, being around Omaha? What was the recruiting process like, and what eventually led you to decide on Richmond?
So I didn't get into the recruiting world until probably my junior year. I played 3 sports up until then, and my sophomore year was when I started on varsity, and we were 9th in the country. We were really good, and I always tell this story to guys. We played against this team because around here we still played Legion, and so we played this team from Texas, and they just mopped the floor with us. And I'm like, we're talking to them after the game, and I'm like, man, where are these kids from? Where are they going? And they were telling us about travel ball, and we were like, what's travel ball? And they were like, oh, dude, we're like a mid-tier travel team. And I was like, okay, who's beating them? So then it kind of opened my eyes. So that year, I went to my first showcase. I quit football, which was a whole thing because football was big. And my dad was like, okay, we're going to take you to a showcase, basically to show me that this was a terrible idea to quit the other sports. And I was one of the top catch and throw guys in the country, and I found that out when I went to this showcase. And so I kind of got an idea of where I stood in the class, and I got recruited by everybody, but I had kind of that Omaha curse of I want to play for a College World Series team. I didn't understand the recruiting process and had nobody to really coach me through it, so I'm just kind of getting my ducks in a row, taking all these talking to all these schools and thinking I have all the time in the world. And ultimately I called Wake Forest. I was going to commit, and a different things aren't like they are today. It's not as instant update. There's not as many instant updates. And a different set of coaches answered the phone, and they're like, "Oh yeah, those guys are gone. So you can't commit here." And I was like,
"Yeah."
Oh, okay. So then I was looking at Baylor. I was looking at Vanderbilt. I was looking at Louisiana Lafayette, and this was Vanderbilt right when Coach Corbin had gotten there. So he had just gotten there. He started recruiting me, and I got a packet every 6 days. And I was like, I remember sitting there, my dad's like, it's a really good engineering school. And I'm like, yeah, but they're the doormat of the SEC. They were 24 and 25. The next year, he had them at 42 and 10. So That was one of those where
That's
looking back
brutal.
on it. Yeah, looking back on it, I was like, oh, that was probably, that was, I kind of swing and miss on that one. But Richmond at the time they played in the Super Regional against Nebraska. And so I got to see them up close. And they had the number 3 draft pick in the country that year, Tim Stauffer, and then Vito Chiribaldi. Vito Chiribaldi led the nation in home runs. So and then they had All-Americans too. So like they were like, kind of the hot school at the time. And so when they called, and they were like, do you know who we are? And I was like, actually, I do. Yeah, I saw you guys play Nebraska. I was at the games, and that was kind of the beginning of how I got there. And so it was at a time when scholarships were kind of slim pickings, and I was kind of ready to go right away in terms of like I needed to get my bat kind of caught up a little bit, but defensively I was ready to go. So I was able to kind of plug and play. They offered me a full ride, and I was kind of off and running. So it was a lot freshman year, and that was where I draw a lot of the stories from and stuff, that experiences that I had going into college. But it was just a super warm environment. Like the team was, when I got there, it was like a brotherhood, and that was what I wanted out of a school. Plus, I wanted the opportunity, not to necessarily start right away, but the opportunity to play right away. And so fortunately, my catch and throw kept me on the field, even when I was hitting 170 2/3 of the way through the year, and then kind of got hot there as I figured things out. And at the end of the year, and ended up having a good first year. So it was a learning experience throughout. But that was how I got to Richmond. Just kind of juggling. I have like letters from all these schools, and everyone's like, "How'd you end up at Richmond?" And I was like, "I were the Super Regional." It was kind of like Coastal Carolina is kind of now. So it was a journey for sure.
Hey everybody, want to take a quick break and discuss our partner Cowboy Revolution Apparel. If you want 15% off all of their products, go to the website, use promo code Valid Studios, all uppercase Valid Studios. Everything they make is made with comfort in mind, and it all looks great. So go get yourself a hat, and we know you'll enjoy it just as much as we do. So as you alluded to, the recruiting landscape looks completely different now than it did when you were going through it. Mm-hmm. As you've seen those changes, have you adapted what you kind of tell your own players at all to those changes? And in what ways have you kind of modified your approach to that when you're guiding guys through this? Because as you said, you didn't have kind of that guiding force. And what do you want to be for these players that are going through something similar right now?
It's changed so much, and I tell guys, go where you're wanted, go where you're gonna play. And with the landscape now, the worst case you're gonna be in is you go to a school that is really excited to have you, and you're gonna get an opportunity, and you play your way out of it essentially. Like worst case, you go to a D2 or D3 or NAI, and you play so well that D1s are knocking at your door, and you enter the portal and you go do that. If you go to a mid-major and you get an opportunity right away, you're going to have the opportunity to jump to a major school if you want to, or cement your legacy where you're at, and be somebody who's part of the build. I always tell guys, don't chase the success, chase the build. If you go to somewhere that's had a bunch of success recently, when that happens, a lot of times there's kind of a lull afterwards. And so I tell guys, don't be afraid to go to a school that's kind of in build mode. Whether it's closer to home or a new coach or whatever, go somewhere where you feel comfortable with the coaching staff and what they're trying to do. Because it's really easy to hop on the big name on the front of the hoodie, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there coming home at Thanksgiving going, I don't go there anymore. And I've seen both sides of it, and so it's much easier to take an opportunity and build it into something more. Unfortunately, a lot of guys want that big name on the hoodie, and it's kind of an ego hit, and making sure that they're still believe that they're the same player they were when they went to that big school initially, can sometimes be tougher on guys than it needs to be. So I'm trying to just save them some time. I'm not trying to discourage them from going places. We have guys go all over the country, but we want to make sure it's the right spot. And I think some schools do a really good job of not over-recruiting and bringing in the right guys. But there are going to be schools that, in some of them, man, it's a business. And it's what can you do for me lately? And when you get into a big environment, you go to a school like an LSU, like an Arkansas. If you don't come in hot, ready to go, and ready to compete for that starting spot, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, because it's not like they're going to give you a ton of opportunities to necessarily like work your way out of that. You're going to have to show what you can do right from the get-go, and it can be a lot of pressure. So make sure you guys are ready to handle that.
Right, yeah. You mentioned catching pitching and hitting in college. And those are, for people that have played, I know enough about the game to know that those are the three most demanding spots on the field on your body. I feel like we've moved, as not just baseball, but sports as a whole, away from sort of an era of kind of grind it out basketball in the 80s where, it's full contact. It's basically football on a basketball court. Similarly in baseball, you're going full games. Now we're almost never seeing complete games. Do you like the way that baseball has moved towards more of a load management kind of perspective of things? And how did you work through that in college yourself?
In college, for me, I'm probably not the best example. I thought I could do everything. Like I said, I was the one who went to the coach's office and said I can throw every fifth day. I was throwing 120 to 140 pitches every outing. So that was.
You kind of need that irrational confidence, though.
Oh yeah. I thought I was Superman.
Yeah.
I definitely thought I was Superman. It was, and that was kind of what started my arm injuries. I eventually had 2 nerve injuries that I can't feel my right hand. So, I'm not the one to talk to about, not overthrowing.
Well, then, what did you learn from that?
What did I learn from that? I learned that I took really good care of my arm because I never had any ligament trouble or any shoulder trouble. It was literally just this nerve tunnel that went through my hand that got disrupted from kind of overuse. And it was my own doing. It was I could have said, oh, no, I only want to throw, on Fridays and been fine. But I wanted to be Superman. For guys though, now I think the load management's a little misleading. When you look at Major League Baseball, I think the pitch clock is rushing guys. I think the analytics are sometimes getting in the way because you'll see guys getting rolled out 3-4 days in a row, like for their one inning, and it's like there's not you got to understand the human element of eventually you got they're taking plane trips cross country and then they're showing up and throwing on the 4th day in a row, and eventually that's going to give, and I think we're seeing. That's part of why we're seeing the increase in injuries. I think the constant chase for velocity is when you see guys getting pulled in the 4th or 5th inning when they're doing well and their pitch count's low. That's when it's like the common sense bear. I always talk about the common sense bear. He kind of says, "Well, why wouldn't you just let him go one more inning? He's doing really well." And I think with all the analytics, if it was as foolproof as they try to make it out to be, it would be a lot more successful. Just across the board, and I think there's still a lot of baseball feel that has to be, employed. My question whenever I get to talk to guys who are in analytics in major leagues is, okay, so you can measure this. Now tell me how you use it on the training side. Tell me how you're applying it to something tangible, something that we can actually use. And sometimes you really don't get great answers, and I'm like, that's at some point it's telling kids that it's this easy. All you have to do is increase, this the lateral movement or the downward action on certain things. It's like yes and no. Being able to control your out pitch, being able to manipulate it and change it to do different things is also really important. And then taking guys who have 2 or 3 really good pitches and not adding pitches just for the sake of adding them, because there's the old adage of like if you have three breaking balls, you don't have one. And it's like if you have one, sometimes if you have a pressure pitch or one that you're relying a lot more on spin, it's being able to throw both of those effectively versus them kind of blending into one. I think is difficult to do when you're teaching guys. I think a lot of times with pitchers, you want to make sure you have one first, and you're able to differentiate what is causing the ball to move the way you want. So there's a lot that goes into it, man. It's all encompassing. So
yeah. Of course. So take me through what it was like that night that you got drafted, and then also moving in through the minor leagues. I think that's a universally recognized experience as being very humbling, going from being the big dog to sleeping on couches and air mattresses and scraping by to scrape away at the dream, and then eventually what led you out of minor league baseball.
Yeah, so I was battling injuries going into the first time I went through the draft. I was projected 2nd to 4th round or 3rd to 5th round, depending on whether it was a starter or as a setup guy. And so I had really high expectations going into that year. When I started to battle injuries, I got drafted by the Angels late because they used to have more rounds, and I got drafted. They just wanted to see me healthy, and we were talking about like 8th round money if I got healthy. So I didn't know that I needed surgery yet. The tricky part with the whole thing was the surgery only had like a 3-week recovery, but I didn't know because it was a nerve thing. I didn't realize how little they knew about nerve injuries, and so I got to experience that, and I was told that it was, oh, you just need to rest, and you just need to. So I rested like all summer and just ran, and then when they went in and did the surgery, it was instantly better, and so I was like, well, that's annoying. So I go back, pitch my senior year, it starts to do it again. It was kind of like my wrist would kind of lock up and fatigue really quickly, and so then I went back through the whole thing again. They're like, well, maybe it's in your head, or the scar tissue could have done this. So I pitched my first season with kind of the injury nagging, and Dr. Andrews went in and opened it up the second time and basically said, we're going to try something. And he's like, I'm not sure if it's going to work. So it worked, and I go back to spring training. I'm throwing pretty well. They even let me throw a little bit in AAA camp before they were like, all right, you're going to go to high A. And all of a sudden, I go play catch one day, and the ball just sails on me. Next one goes in the ground. I'm like, I can't feel my hand. And that was it. I was literally home 5 days later. I got released because I lost all feeling in my hand, the back of my arm. So that was, when you talk about not having a plan B, that was kind of jarring, that whole experience. And that's something that I'm huge on with our guys here and a lot of our coaches. I tell them when they train here, we have a lot of pro guys, and I'll tell them when the day comes that the road ends and you don't know who to call me. Come get your feet underneath you, come here. We'll get you a place to get your feet underneath you, be around baseball, be around the guys. And even if it's not what you want to do forever, if it's just something to get you, figure out your next move, something to kind of collect yourself, because that was a huge thing for me when I got done with baseball. I didn't know what to do. And so a lot of baseball guys go through that, and a lot of guys go through a lot of dark times going through that, myself included, where you're just scrambling to find the next thing. You didn't have a plan for this, and you're just grasping at, whatever straws you can find in terms of whether it's work or, trying to do the most stressful job and the thing that you think you're supposed to do, because you didn't know really what your plan B was. And that's a lot of baseball guys, because if you have a plan B, you already kind of have a foot out the doors. But the draft itself was it was exciting. I always tell guys with the draft, you don't get drafted until you get drafted, and you can get told everything under the sun. You get calls that, hey, we're going to draft you in the next round, and it doesn't happen. You get calls, hey, we're thinking about picking you here in this spot, would you sign? And you're like, yeah, absolutely. And then nothing happens. So having gone through it twice, it's a tough experience. And I tell guys every year, I know it's exciting. There's all this hype around it. Just take it for what it's worth. The second year I went through it, I went and played golf. I didn't even watch the draft. I just said, I'm gonna get out of the house. I'm not gonna sit here and wait for it. And I encourage guys to do that. And so it's because it can be a lot. And so you get that opportunity, though, and once you're in, you have a shot, and you get to see what that's like. So to your point, being on the couches, and I used to cash my paychecks at the concession stands, and I just walk up and be like, it's like $300. Can I just get it? Yeah, here you go. We were in dorms. As
many hot dogs as you'll give me.
Yeah. What can I trade this for?
Yeah.
But we were in dorms for the first half of the year when I was in Lowell, so that was an experience in itself. And then some raccoon got in the vents, and they had to shut the whole place down, and we were in a hotel for the rest of the summer. So
man,
it was a good time. But
that's better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you pretty much. Oh, for sure. You pretty much answered my next question, which was going to be what that transition was like from minor league baseball into the next phase of life. But in between opening Chip's Performance and the end of your playing career, what was that time like? Because y'all have only been open for 21 months, right? At this point. So what was that like? What were you doing?
Oh, shoot. I did finance. I did insurance. I did logistics. I did all the high-stress jobs that you're supposed to be able to, make a lot of money doing and sit behind a desk and feel important. And for some guys, they kill it at that, and they're really good at it. And I just was not built to be behind a desk. And so baseball was always my escape, even when I was just coaching. I started coaching right away. And I realized quickly that I liked coaching more than I liked playing. I thought there's so much more. It was really fun. I love being around the kids. I speak fluent kid, so that helps. It took me a long time.
I like that. I'm going to steal that from you.
Oh, 100%. Please do. It took me probably the better part of 10 years to really get through my head that like I needed to do what I was good at. And what I was good at was working with kids and baseball, coaching baseball. And so I actually started doing daycare, and I did daycare, and then I did lessons and coached travel ball. And when I started doing daycare, it was like somebody told me about this job, and I was like, I don't want to do that. And but I'd done some showcases out in Cali for a while, and with some friends, and it kind of got me back into like baseball and like doing this more full time. So when I got back, I was like, all right, what do I really want to do? And when I went to when I was like looking for work, somebody was like, hey, we got this job doing daycare, and I was like, I don't want to run a daycare, that's silly. And they kept asking me. I was like, fine, I'll do this daycare thing. And it was like the third week we were there, and I'll never forget it. This little girl comes in, and her dad's got her siblings, and it was Valentine's Day, and she'd have a Valentine's box. And she looks at her dad, and her dad's just looking at her like, I'm so sorry, but like he was on his own. He had like 4 other kids. And so the person I was working with at the time was like, hey, take care of everything. We're gonna handle this. And they made her this Valentine's Day box and little invitations for her whole class. And it like changed her year. And I saw that little girl I did that for 5 years, and it never felt like work for a day. After that, I was like, I'm in. I was like, I've never done anything at work, like outside of baseball, like that actually mattered, like what you guys just did. Like that was really cool. And so I had a blast doing that for 5 years. And but it gave me the opportunity to coach as much as I wanted. And so eventually I did go, kind of made the conversion over to baseball full time. But that was the most fun I ever had. And it was like, it just got me away from the stress of being behind a desk and doing all that stuff, and just got me around kids, and I love the psychology of how kids think and how they work, and how to communicate with them, and so I translated into my coaching as well. So started doing baseball full time, and after about 2 years, I kind of maxed out like how many lessons I could do in a year, like physically, and so I was like, okay, it's kind of time to make the jump, and so got with my co-founder, and I was like, hey, I want to do this. Are you in? Like, I need you. Got some coaches who were like-minded. I was like, I want to do something different. I want to do something where it's all inclusive, because baseball it takes time. And I was doing lessons, and sometimes you only needed 20 minutes of the hour, or sometimes you needed 15 minutes of the half hour, and then you kind of start to fill time, and I didn't like that. I was like, there's more we could be doing. Or more kids I could be working with. And so even with group training and stuff, it just wasn't quite the same. And I wanted a place where the guys could come in 7 days a week. We do their strength training, we do their speed training, do their yoga, do their arm care, their throwing program, nutrition, help them with recruiting. And it was all just no nickel and diming, no, oh, well, this is extra and this is extra. It was just like one fee, one thing, here we go. And at first I was like, okay, that's a cool idea, but I'm sure we'll have to do all these other kinds of things in small groups. And when we opened, everybody loved the membership, and it created this like really competitive, supportive culture. And so we started doing live at bats, and it just kind of took off. So the way the social media part kind of took off was we did 245 videos trying to like promo the facility and do all that stuff, and we'd spend so many hours just editing these hype videos and got nowhere. I mean, we got nowhere. It was like 245 videos, 10 hours editing these things, and we had crickets. And so one day my assistant goes, hey, put these sunglasses on. And I'm like, we're inside. And she goes, nobody's watching our videos anyway. And I was like, hey, you're right. Okay, might as well. And it just kind of took off, and we sat down and we were like, okay, what just happened? Like, how did that work? And we simplified it, and we just said, okay, we're going to cast a little bit bigger net. We're going to try to do stuff that more people are asking about. We were trying to do some kind of higher level, like talking about like the intricacies of like analytics and stuff. And I'm like, we're missing a lot of people here. And so what if we just kind of make it more sustainable, made it fun, and we're just going to see what happens if we just crank out 3 videos a day for a year. Let's just see what happens. And so we did that, and it took off probably, it started to take off right then, but by about middle of the summer, we realized we were onto something. And we've kind of eclipsed certain goals that we had along the way. Now we're kind of getting into long form, it just really opened a lot of doors, and that was the cool part. It was really cool to see how it resonated with baseball people, and that was our main thing. Was like behind the sunglasses and behind all that stuff, like we didn't want the message to get lost that like we weren't full of it. We were baseball people, and we wanted to talk to the baseball people or the parents who or the coaches who were just trying to connect with their players and give them different ways to do that. And so with 3 videos a day, the good thing is you can swing and miss a lot. You can do all kinds of stuff, and every 100 videos we'll go back and like take our 10 best and take our 5 worst and do more of that, do less of that, and wash, rinse, repeat. So it's been really cool. But when we talk to people and they're like, you did 3 videos for a year? I'm like, well, we're at 18 months now. We've been doing 3 videos a day for 18 months. And they're like, that is nuts. And so, but we just kept it fun. We made it sustainable. We did it in a way that allowed us to have fun with it. And we've been able to add staff. And the social media stuff is way different than I ever imagined. But it's also way more simple than I think a lot of people make it out to be. I think people get discouraged really quick. And there's a lot. If you want to add value to the space, there's an opportunity for you. And I think that's the biggest thing. Just don't be somebody you're not. Like, only difference between me and my character on social media is just the sunglasses. Like, I wear the same stuff every day. I'm pretty bored now. We're all black. Yeah. But just being ourselves.
Black looks good on everybody.
Yeah, it's slimming. It's slimming. So
yeah, it does.
It helps. But it goes with the aesthetic. And but one of the things too is the consistency of like when you see something on social media, like that was a big part of it. We realized if we changed more than 1 or 2 things, like the videos didn't do as well. If we had the background was confusing, it didn't do as well. There was little nuances to it. If we started facing the camera, it didn't do as well. So like learning basically the elements that you see a lot of people talk about when it comes to content creation, we were learning them live. We were learning them in real time.
Right.
Like, having 4 elements of a hook and all that stuff. Just a little, weird stuff like that. So,
well,
it's been a crazy
I can
ride.
speak to. Yeah, for sure. You mentioned there that your original goal was to reach out to baseball people and connect with baseball people. I can attest to the fact that you are reaching far more than just baseball people, because I think that's the beauty of the skits, personally, is that even if you aren't in the game every day and you don't love baseball, you can still enjoy the videos. Like, I grew up in basketball, played AAU all my life, was in the recruiting, all of it, and then ended up running track in cross country in college.
Wow.
And that's where I'm at now.
Cool.
But to me, it's like, I'm a Red Sox fan, so I know about the game. I played when I was little, but I found your videos, and you are easily one of my favorite follows on Instagram and on TikTok, period.
Thank you.
Like,
that's awesome.
I can speak to the fact that you don't have to know baseball to understand the simplicity and enjoy the joy that it looks like you are having recording the videos. Some of my favorites are, like, I have a few of them here. The bat flip one that you did where you're like, don't flip it over the cage. Like, that's not cool. The bat flip etiquette, talking about umpires, getting out, throwing equipment, that kind of thing. Those are my favorite videos. So what are your kind of favorite videos to make? Like, what genre of video? Is it more of the, like, instructional teaching ones, or is it more of the lighter hearted?
Oh, the lighter hearted ones, probably, because it's a lot of our humor, and we never know if those are going to land. Sometimes taking the idea and getting into fruition, it doesn't always go the way you plan. But sometimes it hits. I mean, it's me and my assistant Sid, who's like one of my best friends in the whole world. Mm-hmm. I actually met her while I was doing daycare, and she was just hyper aware. Came in, was super into sports, super organized, knew what I was going to ask before I needed to ask it. And having somebody like that, well, having her was the game changer for me, because she could give me real feedback, and and we knew each other well enough that it wasn't like, critical. I'll never forget one time she told me, she stopped during a video and she's like, okay, I need 95 Huskers national championship energy. And I was like, okay, that's gonna, feels kind of weird, because like, I don't know. And I did it, and I never realized how it is perceived on camera. And sometimes you feel like you're being a lot, and then you look at it on film and you're like, oh, that looks normal. But to you, it feels like more. And so that was huge. Being able to get comfortable. I had 0 acting background outside of a musical I did when I was in junior high. And so it was a lot of getting out of your comfort zone. And now we've had to film. We'll go to our other facilities now sometimes and film, and they'll want to watch. And I'm like, now we have an audience while we're like, we have a live studio audience while we're filming. And I'm like, man, the show goes on.
Now you really are acting. Yeah.
Yeah, like now it's like they're seeing our mess ups, they're seeing the way we film stuff, and just trying to figure it out as we go has been the biggest thing. And so it's a lot, it's a lot. And Sid, I'll credit Sid with all of it because she does the editing. She helps come up with the content ideas. When we come up with them, it's like trying to figure out kind of the elements of what makes a video interesting, and then once you have that, you can kind of plug anything into it. It's like, what do we want to talk about? How do we want to? What angle do we want to look at this from? And what what videos are we watching that we're actually watching the whole way through, not for the material, but like what about the video makes us go, stick around till the end. And so as we kind of get further into that, it's always surprising too. Like, well, I'm sure you've experienced this. Like, you'll make some videos and you're like, that was okay, and then it'll just go off and people will love it. And then you're like, oh man, that was an awesome video, and then it just gets crickets. And so, not being sensitive, literally don't know what videos are getting posted each day, because if I did, I think I'd start worrying about how they were doing, or do we need to change this or whatever. And we have an idea of like, if we post 3 a day, this is how many followers we're gonna add, how many people we're gonna reach, how many views we're gonna get. And we just really try to be creative with product placement and different things that we get to do now. But my favorite part is being able to give stuff away. I love it. Like, we'll go places and just see a fan or see a kid, standing off to the side just watching the team. Like, we went down and did pictures only with Roger Clemens. Like, that was wild. And I mean, I was a huge Clemens fan growing up, and just to be around him and just get to absorb kind of the stuff he was talking about. And some of he had so many things where he'd be like, all right, camera's down, I'm gonna tell you a story. And I was like, that was the good stuff. And so it was really cool, and getting to be around players. Like, we had really high level players down there, and be around. We had these content houses, so we were like in houses, and they got to see me. They realized that I did take the sunglasses off, and I am just like hanging out. Like, I was like, oh yeah, guys, like, it's the sunglass thing kind of makes it the any coach for a lot of people. Yeah, and it's like that coach you had when you were a kid. You don't know. You don't remember his name, but he said really good stuff, and it was like that was who it kind of resonated with. And so I also get when I'm out and about, it's like, you look like somebody I know, and I got that way before social media too. So it's like, apparently I look like somebody everybody went to high school with. So it's kind of funny. But
dude, even it may just be you. Like, I'm showing people, kind of my friends and family, like the guests I'm having on in the next month, and they're like, Coach Alex Hale, I'm going to have him on. And they're like, oh, I don't know who that is. And I'll pull up your Instagram and I'll pull up one video and they're like, oh, I've seen that guy before. Like they don't know you by name, but like they have seen you. Like, you've made an impression at some point. You've come across their For You page.
That's awesome.
But the next thing I kind of wanted to know about was, you spoke to that Sid does most of the kind of ideas, but are you ever at like tournaments and you just watch something happen and it just immediately like, oh, that's a video. Like, we're making something about that next week.
All the time. No,
like, what does that look like? What does the ideas filter through? What does that look like?
Oh, geez, we have spreadsheets, and we keep them on our phones, and I have we'll just make notes, we'll just put content at the top of it, our notes, and then we share them with each other. But it's just stuff the guys are talking about. We want to know. We have our guys in the facility. We have teams we're coaching. We get to have like all-time full access to the stuff our players are going through. And my first group I ever coached, when they were like 6 and 7 years old, they are now seniors in college, and so they've gone the whole gamut, through it. And my 25s are now freshmen in college, and so I had these groups where they're like are complete different ends of the spectrum, in terms of like where they are at the beginning of college, at the end of college, and now I have my 28s that are in high school again. And it's been really cool to just because of my relationships with players, I've always been kind of the big brother coach, like just that person they can when they don't know who else to go to, they go to me, and that's something I've prided myself on for a long time. Just like easy to talk to, nothing, I don't blink, and that's something I tell guys like there's nothing you're gonna tell me that I'm gonna like flinch on, and so whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. And they know that, and they know it's a judgment-free zone when they come in here and talk about stuff. And so I tell people a lot of times, like, the brown couch behind me is where a lot of the important stuff comes from, because they'll come in, hey, I need to talk to you about something, and it's rarely about baseball. It's usually about life, college, girls, whatever, school, and but they just need, somebody to bounce it off of. And I'm not here to tell you what to do, but like sometimes it helps to kind of get that weight off your shoulders. And with all of it comes just different ideas on things that we can touch on with players. Like we never give like specific details or names of kids, on personal stuff. But we can take something and go, how can we take this and somebody else is going to be going through the same thing. So let's make sure we shed light on this. Whether it's some stuff that's as lighthearted as like relationships and handling significant others while playing sports, or more serious stuff like suicide prevention or things like that. It's all things happen, and I don't think we believe we're really big on like not sheltering people from life, but at the same time, like I tell all our coaches too. This is something I learned a long time ago, but it was like if a player comes to me and asks me about something, I'm going to answer it. I'm not going to expose them to things they don't know about, but like that's not my place. But if they have a question, be straightforward with them, be honest, and just give your perspective on and 2 cents on like here's my experiences. Not telling you how to live your life, but when it comes to being an athlete, like, and you can attest to this, people are going to try to get you to do things, and they're going to try to because if you do it with them, they feel better about it. And I tell players that all the time, like, you got to be okay with saying no, and you got to be okay with saying no to your friends. You got to be okay with saying no to people that you want to impress. And it's if you're not, you're going to get into situations that can compromise all the work that you've done up to that point. And so it's being willing to stand on your own 2 feet is a huge part of growing up as an athlete. And so that's something we talk with players about. But if we can do it through content, it helps a ton. A lot of times it helps parents. Hey, I'm not telling you this. Listen to what Swagger Shade says. And
right.
I can tell you, like, from different examples that we've had with players and teams that I've coached, like, I've seen just about all of it. And it's like, you've never seen everything, but if I could save any kid time, it's like, hey, here's what that looks like on the other side. Once you play the tape forward, this is the situation you're going to find yourself in. It's not unique. Mm-hmm. It's guys have gone through it. We've all done stupid stuff. We've all had nights that would be better left forgotten. But it's like at the same time, you can bounce back from that stuff too. And you just right the ship the next day, keep going. You don't need to dwell on it. We don't believe in guilting and shaming people for past transgressions or things that they hold over themselves, because that's not a fun place to be either. And so just giving the kids some perspective is kind of one of the things we try to do the most. And if we can put a funny spin on some things, or try to find the humor in some things, keep the late 90s, early 2000s nostalgia alive, that always helps.
Well, I think that's an extremely admirable perspective and take on it, because that's more rare than you would think. And from all the coaches I've had, I can honestly say that the ones that made the most impact are the ones that knew me personally and cared about me and treated the whole person rather than just the basketball player, just the runner. And honestly, I think they got more out of me too, because as a coach, if you're only treating the baseball side of things, you can get the skill requirements all day long. But if you don't have the heart and the mind of the player fully bought into what you're telling them, then it's not going to resonate no matter what you're telling them. It could be the best instructional advice in the world. And I actually spent a couple years doing basketball training with my former basketball trainer. She hired me after I graduated high school, so I kind of did that on the side for a while. And a lot of the things that we would have to tell parents all the time is the reason it doesn't come from you is the reason it doesn't work when it comes from you is because you tell them stuff all the time and it doesn't resonate anymore. So as a coach, we have to find a way to resonate with the athlete and make sure that they're really hearing and internalizing what we're saying, and not just, in one ear and out the other. And you can only do that with a personal relationship.
100%. And I tell my guys too, if I tell you something that doesn't help you, just nod, yes sir, no sir, in one ear, out the other. Not hurting my feelings. Mm-hmm. You got to be protective of up here. And I think you're totally right. Having that personal connection with a coach is so important, especially when things aren't going well, and you're telling them like, hey, you're right there, you're figuring out, or these mistakes are part of it. It makes them they listen better when they realize that you care more about them outside of just their performance on the field. And also I think as a coach, if you're not willing to, lose a game or two and sacrifice those things for the sake of a player and their development, you shouldn't be coaching. If it's all about winning all the time, every game, you're gonna miss a lot of the key things that can happen that can really make an impact on a kid. And I've gotten to experience a bunch of those in terms of like, hey, here's a kid who he's right on the cusp. He needs to go through this. Whether we win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter to me. It's what he needs right now. And when it works out, it ends up looking like a great idea. When it doesn't, you got to be willing to be like, that's on me. Like, and I think that's something that coaches, I hope, can take to heart and utilize the best way possible, because it really is the important stuff. That's what makes a coach have a huge impact.
Right. I want to circle back just a little bit because you mentioned before that the giveaways were your favorite part of what you do. And I enjoyed one the other day. You gave a pair of sunglasses to a kid at the PO tournament, and he was frozen for like
it was great.
30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
What are your favorites? Some of your favorite stories from giving stuff away that kind of brings a smile to your face?
Oh man, I've been at, gosh, I don't want to put a target on my back here, but like I've been at airports and stuff, and like I'll see a kid and he'll come up to me just randomly and be like, I'm a huge fan, and I'll be like, oh, I'll grab like a Triple Crown necklace or something out of my bag, or if I carry around a pair of the Velo shades, we have gloves and stuff we'll give away. But it's we went down to the College World Series this past year. I bet we gave away $15,000 worth of stuff. We just had bags and bags of stuff that we were giving away.
Dang. Yeah.
And it was so much fun, and just seeing the reactions from kids. And I think that is by far the most rewarding part, because as a kid, like, there's so many kids out there who really, they don't need a lot of stuff, and then there's some kids who, parents are really, it does cost a lot of money in baseball, and when you can help out with something like that, like a glove or a bat or something like that, and really take some of that burden off the parents, it means a lot to them, especially with a kid who understands, like, hey, if I don't get it, I don't get it. Like, I'm totally okay with that. It feels really good to give to kids who are appreciative of things. And that's something that I'm really conscious of with my son, because we rolled up to, it was like kid pitch game, and he had like 3 bats and 3 gloves or whatever. And like, we would be talking during our meetings with some companies, and they would be like, oh, well, we'll send you a bat for your kid. And I was like, you understand, buddy, that it's not normal to have 3 bats. And I was like, if anybody asks to borrow your bat, the answer is yes. And he was like, oh, okay, yeah. And but he's always very appreciative of it, and he's got a really good head on his shoulders about it. I'm like, what's important is playing the game and having fun, and that's the one thing that I always want him to take from sports is like, we're out here to compete, we're out here to have fun, and the rest of it. It's not about the stuff you're wearing and the swag and all that stuff. It's about, learning the lessons from the game. And I don't care how you do. I don't care if you strike out 5 times. I don't care if you hit 5 home runs. At the end of the game, did you have fun? Did you thank your coach? Did you clean up the dugout? All right, let's go get ice cream or do something. Let's have fun and go do the next thing, because he's going to have as much fun at the pool as he is at the baseball field. So it's like right now, making sure, he's a 5-year-old, and that's the biggest thing for us. So I want to make sure if I can share that with other kids, that's huge. So whenever I hear, I've heard parents be like, hey, I got, I would love to get this kid some catcher's gear, or I'll hear about somebody who might need something, and I'm like, let's see if we can find a way to make that happen. And we'll take a lot of time out of our schedule to make sure it's worth it. We're going to do a huge Chipsmas thing this year. We did that last year. That was super rewarding. We'll give away gloves in the facility. We'll give away stuff like all that. We'll just walk out there when we get a bunch of stuff and just be like, hey, who needs this? Or, a kid comes in early in the morning and be like, hey, you're doing the right stuff. You need a glove? And I was like blown away, because they never ask for it. It's always like the kids who, are just doing the right things. Try to catch them doing something right. I always, like I tell my son, try to do something nice for somebody else without getting caught.
I like that. That's a good one. Well, I would imagine as an extension of those giveaways, that's something that makes a kid like, oh, I've got this new glove, I want to go play catch with it. So it's also sort of an investment for you in a way, right? Because down the line,
I
maybe
mean, it doesn't cost me anything, so that's, I don't know if it's as much of an investment for me, but
well, maybe it gets you an extra customer down the line, an extra kid to come into the facility later on.
dude, I tell you what, if I can keep the doors open, keep my staff employed, and everything rolling, that's really the big goal. Like, this whole thing's been such a blessing, and our biggest thing is like being able to have a place for coaches to work and connect with players and spread good stuff, because that was something that I needed when I was younger, and that's our message to all the guys. Like, be who you needed when you were younger, man. If you can do that, you're making the world a better place. And along the way, we'll figure it all out. We're approaching our 2-year anniversary of being open, and so much has changed in 2 years that it's we can't wait to see what's on the horizon. But getting to talk to people like you, and getting to get out there a little bit, and all the people we meet is one of the best parts too. I'd love to get into softball or get into other sports, and kind of spread the message that you can do more than you think you can, and you can also have more fun while you're doing it. I think that's something that we try to do a good job of. We try to separate parents and kids a little bit when they're here. Let the kids kind of get off on their own and work with coaches, and let the parents get to enjoy it a little bit more, rather than try to give them a little bit of perspective and educate the parents as well along the way. So that's where we come in.
Yeah. Well, along those lines of kind of the giveaways and the kids that are wearing the most drip, so to speak, I think a lot of that has to do with confidence. Kids feel better when they look good. But I also think that confidence, the reason that maybe the drip is such a big thing in today's generation, is because confidence comes so short for a lot of these players. So for a generation that watches you do so well on social media, and social media is a big cause of us being most anxious, depressed, suicidal, low confidence, so on and so forth, how do you kind of coach them through that, the confidence aspect of things, and then also dealing with the societal pressures, because you are coaching such, high quality prospects in your facility?
So I was actually having this conversation with a player on our pitchers only team, and he was a high profile player, and he's going to go to a big school. And we talked about, you have your dream, and that becomes kind of your mission. We never want to let the stage that we're on become a prison. Mm-hmm. And so as we're going along, like, you have a good game, don't let that be the thing you compare everything else to. So an example for him, we had 7 games that weekend. The first game, he goes off. Second game, goes off. Third game, hitting balls hard, nothing's falling. And I can see him kind of sitting there like frustrated, like, I need to be doing more, And I pulled him aside, I said, whoa. I go, I see that 10,000 mile stare on you.
Mm-hmm.
I go, don't let it become a prison. So I was like, this is what we talked about. You did well. You're still doing well. You're not doing anything different. Ball's just not falling. It will fall. But you can't put more pressure on it because you've already had success, because you think other people expect you to. That's not your responsibility. Your job is to go to the plate because it's your turn. See if you get a pitch to hit. See if you can put a good swing on it. That's all. I was like, we're not going to make it anything more than that. Because once we start to build stuff on top of it, build expectations on top of it, that's when it becomes a prison, and that's when it becomes stifling, and that's when we start putting extra pressure on ourselves. The same thing with social media, man. When you see baseball highlights, there's a reason those clips are on social media, because they're rare, because it's the highlight reel, because it's edited and it's the perfect version of whatever that person's putting out.
Nobody's posting mid-lights.
No, yeah, I'm not posting I'm not posting the all the mess ups and stuff. You should see how many takes we have to go through sometimes.
Right.
I'll fumble over the same line half a dozen times, and I know what I'm going to say. It's not even like a real game, but it's being able to laugh at yourself. And I think I talked to during an interview the other day about this. Embarrassment is an underexplored emotion. Try it a little bit. Like we like psych ourselves out sometimes, like, with all of these things in our head, and when you really step back, go, which part of that is actually going to happen, or is it me just telling myself that? And a lot of times it's just us telling ourselves that. Like, at the end of the day, ain't nobody worried about what I'm doing on social media. Like, if I can do something good, if I can add value to the space, cool. But if I do a video that's kind of, as kids say, kind of mid, it just goes to the next one. You just go to the next one.
Nobody watched it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's going to watch. Nobody's
right?
watching our stuff anyway. Each piece of content these days is completely independent. So you can have one piece of content that's great. You have one piece of content that's not so good, and you just keep going, and you get better. You grow through what you go through, and so that's how we look at it. I think if when people realize like we don't take ourselves as seriously as it kind of comes off sometimes, that's when we really connect with our audience, and we're not trying to be somebody we're not, and it's like, look, we know there's really smart people in the space. We study from the baseball side to the content side, to the training side, like everything. And that's what we're really good at is we check our ego at the door. I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I just know who's full of shit. And so if I can do that, then I have a pretty good idea of what I need to do. And when it comes to listening to what other people say and studying what they do, and I'm pretty good at that. So now when it comes to training, social media, I've been around long enough with training to kind of see the cycles of things, and so a lot of stuff is not reinventing the wheel, and so we've kind of been able to see how that plays out if you play the tape forward, like where that goes. And so with our guys, we're really big on just like, hey, it takes what it takes. Your warm up, your mobility, your strength, your speed, the mechanics, taking a proper build up, a ramp up when you're getting into throwing programs, all of that stuff's important. And you can't just do one or the other or this or that. The guys who are successful are the ones who are building their body while they're building their mind, while they're building their technique and their skill, and and being competitive and being willing to fail and being willing to challenge themselves and looking at like every time you fail as a learning opportunity. Because if you only want to go out there when you're going to succeed, you're going to be waiting a long time, or you're going to be trying to pick and choose your opportunities, and that's not really how the game's going to work. So it's like if you're going to run in a track meet or cross country meet, you can't always pick who else is running from the other schools. Some guy shows up who's just better than you that day. It is what it is. But if you're like, oh, he's here, so I'm not going to run. I mean, how many races are you going to miss out on? You never know.
Yeah.
And so it's like find out what you're made of. And I think that the beauty in that is something that this generation can kind of get lost on because they're so obsessed with, I have to win, I have to be successful all the time. And I do tell parents a lot, be very careful when you're constantly posting your kid on social media when they're having success, because your kid, and I've had 7 and 8 year olds, and they know when mom doesn't post. They know when mom doesn't post their videos, or 9 and 10 year olds notice when mom and dad don't post their videos because they didn't have a good game. So now we're compounding the bad game. And that's when you got to really start to be careful. So it's, encourage the effort, encourage the good sportsmanship, encourage them to play hard, knock the kid on the other team down and then help them up. Nothing wrong with that. Like that's something I think that people can kind of embrace. We're also big on just, bringing some common sense back to, to the influence we have on the youth of today. Everybody doesn't need to be so damn sensitive, but at the same time, everybody also, can be a little tougher at the same time. Like it's kind of one of those things where like this is going to be tough. Like if it was easy, everybody would do it. And so being consistent with that message, being positive with it, encouraging, and telling guys like, look, I don't need you to have a PR day every day. You're not going to. And that's okay. But if you keep stacking good days together, you're going to be surprised what happens.
I saw a motivational speaker the other day on Instagram. I wish I could remember his name to give him credit for the quote, but essentially what he said, and it really resonated with me, was the standard is the standard. Like your best is not the standard. People like to say your best is the standard, but nobody needs your opinion. We've been doing this for years and years and years. Your best is not the new standard. Like you can either achieve the standard with your best or you can't. And my immediate thought to that was, yeah, the standard's the standard, but at the same time, if a kid's best isn't the standard, like that's okay too. We live in a society today where we tell kids all day long, like, if you work hard, you do the right things, you'll get where you want to go. And that, a lot of times it's just not the case. Like you're not always going to have the perfect success story. Outside factors happen, but everything will happen for a reason, and you will end up where you're supposed to be, even though that's not necessarily where you want to be right now. So I just want to get your thoughts on that really quick, and then I'll ask you one more question. We can wrap this up. I want to be conscious of your time. So
no, I think you're spot on there. It's find out how far you can take it, but don't miss the mark because you were scared. Don't miss the mark because you were hesitant. If you can find out what happens when you put your best foot forward, that was kind of the thing that I was able to find solace in when I got done playing. Was I did everything I could, and I was always a kid where if it came down to effort, I was going to be okay. Like I was going to be able to handle it. Like I wasn't going to love it. There's days I was nauseous going to football practice because I was like, I know if we do conditioning, if we do whatever, I'm going to go until I collapse because I was going to go one speed. But I showed up. I kept showing up, and I played with older kids, and I built toughness. I think I heard a really good thing the other day. Toughness is giving your best when you don't feel like it, when you could get away with giving less, when you could do something else, but you do it anyway. I think that is a huge defining thing about toughness, and being able to keep your head up when things aren't going your way. And I judge a lot of kids by how they play when things are going really well, but more importantly when things are going badly. When they make a mistake, how are they responding? How are they carrying themselves? Because it is so hard when you kick a ball or you kick a second ball and you're playing infield or something, or you walk a guy, you walk another guy, to keep your composure and keep your head up in those moments. When parents excuse the behavior and say, "Oh, well, he's a perfectionist" and whatever, I'm like, okay, then if you're hard on yourself, do the hard thing. The hard thing is to keep your head up. The hard thing is to, go back to the dugout and tell the kid on deck what you saw, not slam your bat and make a big show of it. From 7 and 8 through high school, I tell parents this: the kid is not slamming his bat and throwing his helmet or he didn't start doing that because he thinks that's his reaction to what happened. He's doing that because it's attention or avoidance. He is trying to avoid somebody else beating him down over it. The kid who doesn't get beat down over it doesn't feel the need to make a big display of it and slam his stuff and throw his stuff because he's not going to get ripped into after the game. The kid who's slamming his stuff is trying to keep coach or parent or somebody off their back later.
Look, I'm mad too. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think it's okay. I know it's not okay. And it's like, shouldn't have to. Like, why are we acting like that? I think that's a big thing for kids is attention and avoidance. That's the motivating factor for every kid. So,
well, last question here. You're only 21 months into this, and you're still relatively young. But eventually, one day, you'll retire. You'll move on from things, and may Chip's performance last long after you do. But eventually you'll cycle out. What do you want your legacy, and what players that come through the game and then eventually go have kids and get married and start a life, what do you want them to remember from being in your facility, being around you? What do you want your legacy to be?
I would say that I was relentlessly positive, that I didn't sugarcoat things, that if I could instill values of competitiveness, hard work, support, and kind of that brotherhood, sisterhood amongst athletes, where people just have a little bit more feel. That would be kind of a legacy I'd want to leave, where like kids are. I'll hear guys talk about they saw a video and something resonated with them, and it'll be college players or something. And I'm like blown away by it, but it's like it's really cool just to give that perspective on, hey, here's another way to think about things where you don't have to beat yourself over the head with it all day. You don't have to be. I've dealt a lot with different walks of life, and throughout the years I've been around, and guilt and shame are often what get people sick or get people down bad paths, and it's always like the stuff that they're telling themselves. And so if I can get people to talk more positively to themselves, or to recognize when somebody else is doing it and to pick them up, and the value in that. One thing I do with our guys around here is we'll have guys that come in and some were bigger deals than others, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But teaching some of those guys who are on the upper echelon of that your words carry a lot of weight, and with that does come responsibility. So if you make a comment about a kid, you could not mean anything by it. It can ruin his month. But in the same turn, in the same breath, you could also say something to that kid that can make his month too, make his year. And so be careful with how you use that. Have a good impact. Be the guy you needed when you were younger. and recognize that there is value in that, and recognize that just because your dad talked to you a certain way or your coach used to talk to you a certain way doesn't mean that that's how you have to talk to other people. I think being the change that you want to see in the world is huge, and if we all add just a little bit of value to the space, you don't have to be big on social media to do it. You could make an impact with one person. I mean, before all the social media stuff, I mean, the relationships I built over the years with kids who are now in college and getting out of college, they still reach out and bring their kids in, and it's cool to see the relationships that or they'll bring their little brothers in. The guys I coach don't have kids yet, but they'll bring their little brothers and stuff in, and they'll introduce them and be like, hey, this is the guy who helped me a lot. And it'll be a kid I hadn't seen in 10 years, and I'm like, man, like that's really cool, because I see some of my coaches and I do the same thing with my son. And my son, when he's in here, it's all every kid here's his big brother, because they've learned from me, like, there's a certain way we act, there's a certain way we treat people, and it doesn't matter, guys, girls, old, young, what it is, like, it's just how you do things. And so getting kids to be confident in themselves is a big part of that too. So I think, if there's one thing, be competitive, be positive, see how far you can take it, and have no regrets, because that's the best thing to do. There's no shame in being like a try hard. Like, try hard, see what happens, man, because most people are afraid to even try. So give it a shot. Make the most of it.
Love it. Coach, where can they find you?
You can find me on Chips Performance, or at Chips Performance on social media. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You can also find us at chipsperformance.com, or in Omaha, Phoenix, Des Moines, and pretty soon Lincoln, among other places that we'll be moving to as we open up new locations. But really, we just want to bring positivity, competitive, supportive culture to the world, and that's all we're trying to do.
Awesome, man. Well, Coach, I'm unbelievably grateful for your time. I could talk to you all day. So thank you so much for coming on, and best of luck as you move forward here. I'll be following along. So, hey,
Ben, I really appreciate you having me on. Hope it was a good listen for everybody, and as we always say, like, hope this helps, man. That's what we can do.